Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have John Norbut with me here today. John is the owner of Reliable Risk Management. Welcome to the show, John.
Hi, Tim. How are you doing? Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Excited to talk to you. Why don't you give us a snapshot of Reliable Risk Management right now, and then we can talk about maybe how you got to where you're at.
Well, I will say the name Reliable Risk Management is a little bit ambiguous, but what we are is we are an insurance agency. But I chose a name that was a little bit ambiguous on purpose because a lot of it's figuring out what you need to insure or the client specifics of what they have for exposure.
Okay.
So that was kind of the root of it. And I mean, everybody's heard of, Smith Insurance and, those types. So the last thing I want to do is pick a weird last name like mine and name an insurance agency after that. So that's kind of where the name came from.
Okay. And in sort of what range of insurance do you provide?
So we're a full commercial property and casualty agency. So we do everything from the commercial general liability, work comp, inland marine, to the personal lines. We have a division that does that as well. So we have a predominant construction presence. So a good chunk of the agency is construction focused. I'm born and raised in the Valley. Same thing with my dad.
Nice.
So he was a VP at a very large general contractor that was a business for 30-something years. So with that being said, kind of naturally gravitated to the construction space. So being in business for 13 years, naturally we work with a bunch of contractors.
Okay. Always exciting to meet a native.
Yeah.
Yeah. For our listeners who may not be aware, like myself, a lot of people come from other places, right? Mostly the Midwest and California and the West Coast. A lot of East Coasters go down to Florida at some point, but a lot of people come to Arizona.
Yeah, it's fun to hear the I guess OGs, if you will, talk about the days when Bell Road used to be dirt and that was the edge of town.
Right.
So I'm just old enough, haven't quite broke 40, where I can tell you I do remember those days, but man, we've grown like crazy in the last few years, haven't we?
Yes. I've only been here 18 years, but I've seen a lot of change out in that time. But a lot of people come up to my property and they talk about when they used to come out here and ride bikes or other things. I'm in a weird sort of community. It's an older one here because it wasn't master planned, right? So my neighbors have horses and other stuff. It's a little bit different, but so I have a well and septic and bad internet, but
honestly, you should give the Starlink a try. So
I might.
So we office out of Anthem. We've got right now 2 locations. We've got a Northern Arizona one in Prescott, right downtown by the square. Then our main hub is in Anthem. And we used to use Cox, probably looped into the same overcrowded group you're in. And we made the transition to Starlink and for business and personal. And I'll tell you, it'll blow you away. And
really?
This is the wildest thing is they promise you a certain speed. So the first thing you do when you get it hooked up, you do a speed test. So I do the speed test and it didn't meet their advertised thing. So I give them a little message saying, hey guys, this didn't hit the number. They say, hold on a second, let us point some satellites your way. And then sure as heck, it shot through the roof. So Really cool technology.
Yeah. Wow. That's very cool. No, I have CenturyLink DSL. So I have to shut some things down when I do the podcast to make sure it doesn't get too choppy.
Oh, good. Well, we'll get you there a little bit at a
time. I have friends who have CenturyLink though. A lot of them, like I have a few, they take it out on their boats. Like one's up at Lake Powell, one's in the Caribbean, and they love it. They say it's super zippy. Even the uploads, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it works phenomenal. I mean, this Zoom call right now is through Starlink, and you would not know the difference. And we've got a team of close to 30 people, and every Friday we do a group call, and it's actually enough capacity to get the majority of the people who office out Anthem on a Zoom call, believe it or not. So
they're all sharing the same connection.
Yes, believe it or not.
Wow, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
I gotta get a commission from Tesla now.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
So tell me a little bit more about, uh, you said the bulk of what you do at Reliable Risk is construction based. What's the scope of those sort of clients? Is it small, big, everything?
Kind of everything. And ironically, my largest account client right now, who owns and runs more than $200 million of equipment, was a guy in a pickup truck less than 10 years ago. So it's a pretty awesome industry that I get to be a part of because you really get to see the person and how they grow and what they're
Okay.
capable of. So you almost pre-underwrite an individual and give them the tools to be successful and the network to do so. So it's very rewarding. But if you
Yeah.
don't mind, I can give you a little background on myself that makes some of this make sense.
Sure, please.
Okay. So, like I'd mentioned, born and raised, went to high school, Pinnacle High School. I was supposed to go to Brophy, and then my dad, as a general contractor, built Pinnacle High School. So he befriended the principal, and I like girls, so I was lucky enough to get to go there. So went to Pinnacle High School, and then after that, kind of immediately was working construction during high school for my dad's company in the field as a laborer. And he was adamant about me not going into the construction trade. So he would give me the worst possible jobs of picking up trash to surveying the middle of the heat to managing day laborers that are a challenge. So I got the worst jobs that you could imagine. And right about wrapping up high school, I actually met the insurance and bond agent for the large construction company I worked for at a Christmas party for the construction company. And he took a liking to me and asked me out to lunch a few weeks later. And I impressed him and he offered me a job under the conditions that I worked for him and then go to night school. So the first year, ironically, had a job, but he had me remaining in the field, but spending a week with each different construction trade on these commercial job sites. So the job was Glendale Aquatic Center, 59th Avenue, Union Hills. You've probably driven by it.
Oh, sure.
And got to spend a week with each trade or week or more. So that was really my first year, and then began to work at the actual insurance agency, and it was quite a cool experience. And while I did that during the day, at night I went to ASU. I got a bachelor's in construction management and also in finance. And during the day at the insurance job, a lot of people think the insurance agent's just somebody that you call once a year and pay a premium and do a renewal and do a little price shopping.
Right.
But in reality, what my days are consumed with is whatever the problems are of the client. So the client will call me with, XYZ lawsuit or a contract dispute or who knows the random problem of the day, rezoning issues, everything all across the map. And it's an awesome opportunity to try to get creative and solve problems. So there's a lot of creativity in my job. So ironically, I make my living selling insurance, but that's probably the last thing I do all day.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's the quick and dirty, if you will.
Right. For our listeners who may not know, can you talk a little bit more about the nature of that type of insurance? These are like bonds then for projects?
So let me, I guess, backpedal a little bit. So
Yeah.
this is regular business insurance.
Okay.
And typically a contractor signs a contract that has a requirement and that require different kinds of insurance regarding general liability, auto insurance, workers' comp, and certain endorsements or add-ons to that.
Right. Well,
So
real quick, you always hear licensed, bonded, and insured, right?
yeah,
If they're legit and they have their stuff together.
yeah. And then the funny thing is when I don't want to talk to somebody on an airplane, I either tell them I sell life insurance, which I don't, or tell them that I'm a bondsman because that usually scares them into stop talking to me. But I'd say to your note, when I always hear that, it drives me a little bit crazy inside because I don't think anybody really knows what bonded means when somebody says licensed, bonded, and insured. But in reality of what it really means is if they have a certain license, like let's say a plumbing contractor, for instance, he has a license and that's for a state, comes with a bunch of state statutes and laws that he has to adhere to. And he has to go out and find company, a bonding company, to guarantee that he'll adhere to those. Or if there's a penalty,
His
they will
contracts
pay
up
the
to a
penalty.
certain range.
Like, it's actually, that is not quite, so that might be another misnomer. So it's up to the
Okay.
state to put an amount of bond regarding how large that contractor is. So the bigger that they say their potential to be, the larger bond that they'll ask them to post.
Right.
So that's what we refer to as like a license bond. And then the other half of the bonding world that I spend the majority of my time in is payment and performance bonds. And what those are guarantees to contracts. The majority of them are construction contracts. The best way to think of it is anytime there's public money spent, whether it be the state or the Fed, they have to guarantee it so it doesn't get wasted, right? So that's where the bonds come into play. And then somebody like me gets called and we get together a bond program and bond whatever that particular contract for that project would be.
Okay, so that's great. Thank you for that. Now, maybe an example for our listeners, and I believe it's something like there's a problem at the site, they're falling behind, or that they're not paying their subs or whatever, and to keep it on, you either have to go in and use your knowledge of construction and on-site management and everything to go in and start. I don't know if you take over the job, maybe you do sometimes, but you mitigate what's going on and keep things moving forward in different ways.
So that's great that you bring that up, and it's kind of fun to talk about, to be honest with you. So you never ever want to have a bond claim as the first thing. So the bond is really to make sure that you're adhering to that contract as much as humanly possible. But sometimes there's things, outside of our control. Like, construction's not perfect. There's always a problem of some kind. Nothing designed ever quite goes as planned. And like when those things come to fruition or happen to happen, we try to jump in and create a solution before both parties get so angry they can't come to a resolution. And if that were to happen, then the owner, or what they call the obligee, who the bond is written to, can exercise their rights to make that bond pay out. And ultimately, the contractor is responsible. So the company has to guarantee that bond, so they could lose cash and assets if they choose to walk away from a bonded project. So the repercussions are pretty big. So in knock on wood, in my 19-year career, it hasn't happened, but
Okay.
Yeah, we've luckily been able to solve it. But when things go bad, they tend to go really bad.
Okay. So, but in contrast to the typical insurance salesman thing, it sounds like more like you're a project therapist, maybe, who goes in and helps people communicate better to make sure things stay on track. Is that fair to say? Or sometimes, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say communicating is good, but a lot of it is understanding what you're obligated to do. Because how many of us have signed a DocuSign and not read the whole thing, right? Not knowing you're signing your life away. And really, that's where I kind of come into play, is to ask the people, say you go to a barber shop, he signed a lease to probably rent that space, although he's never read what he's required to do in that contract. And if something were to happen, he would be held liable, or he'd be in breach of contract for not fulfilling those insurance obligations. So on the insurance side, a lot of it's, making sure they're fulfilling their obligation. They're buying an insurance product rather than putting their own, net worth out there as collateral for not doing so. So that's a big piece of the insurance part. So, and then also kind of as it transfers over into running a business, there's lots of risk when you go and hire other contractors or work for somebody. And what I try to do is bring those parts of, whether it be a state statute, like for instance, you may know here in Arizona, independent contractors or sole proprietors can waive their right to work comp, which a lot of people know. So it's quite common that everybody rolls with it, but then nobody puts it into a legal document or something that's, the story can't change later.
Verifying that wasn't their election at the time.
Exactly. So, this is kind of a common lawsuit that's happened plenty of times. And we see it like at the corporate commission a lot, where, we'll go to Joe the plumber again, who's a guy in a truck, and you don't require work comp when he works for you, because, by Arizona state law, he can waive his right or need to it. But suddenly when Joe gets hurt, he could go to the corporate commission and say, hey, I was working for John. He's responsible for paying for my medical bills. And being that we had no written agreement between us, ultimately I could be held responsible. So for what I do in my profession, it's really to kind of look out for those, and then to give people the simple tools to, I mean, it's literally a one-page contract to just recognize that he would be a sole proprietor. And in that same event, if it were to go to the corporate commission, they would see that he recognized the risk and what he's alleging is false, and it would squash the potential problem. So a lot of the things I do is try to prevent the problems before they happen. And it's just part of the experience. When you work with as many different companies and in many different areas, the problems are inevitable, and they're just part of living and running a business. So when I'm able to learn from one, I'm able to kind of replicate and help others. And I think with my dad's company that was a $500 million a year general contractor in the early 2000s, which would be 10x that nowadays, right? There were so many problems encountered that I got good at solving those at a younger age. So that's just kind of rolled and magnified, and have been able to build out a pretty good network of attorneys and CPAs, and got a lot better at reading state statutes and contracts to help fill the voids.
Okay. And I imagine you wear a lot of hats, and so you when people need something, you can maybe provide it or know somebody who can, but also you have sort of a niche, maybe secret sauce for your company. Can you talk a little bit more about what sets your company apart in your industry?
Well, I'd say the biggest thing that sets us apart is we're a bit of a dying breed in that we do things old school. And probably the best way to throw this out there real quickly is when I first got into this industry, there was probably 40 or 50 people that would be the same size company with the same type of business that we do as far as commercial and personal insurance sales of this volume. And there's been so many mergers and acquisitions in this, last, I'd say 10 years, especially, the competitors have come down to, I would say 5, 6, 7 legitimate competitors. It's pretty wild how much it's consolidated. And that I think is a detriment to the industry itself, because it's really based on a relationship and trust. Because just like you with a doctor, your attorney, you've got a trust and a relationship with that person. And with your insurance and your financial health, you have that same trust. So it's not, Googling a price for auto insurance. It's more about talking about what your personal situation is, and then having somebody ask the right questions to figure out the right answers. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that sets us apart, is it's legitimate relationships and it's a legitimate trust, and it's a reputation that we try to uphold and do the right thing no matter what. And that's something that I feel like it's part of a dying breed, and that's where the old school comment comes in.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and I appreciate that. And in my industry as well, I'm very relationship based, right? And there's a lot of competition out there online, digitally, right? And it's very hard to know who to trust and who's reliable and so forth. And that really takes time to generate that know, like, and trust aspect. So you mentioned the consolidation in your industry. I'm wondering if you've been part of that at all yet, or if you foresee something like that in the future, or it being maybe teaming up or buying another group or getting bought out at some point. Do you have plans on the horizon for that sort of change?
I mean, it's been, if it was solely a financial motive, it would be the smartest thing to do. And that's been lots of other insurance agencies that have done that, where somebody would to grow it to a certain size, sell it, and then wait till their non-competes end and then redo it again. But personally, I have no desire to do that. I think the quality of life and financial reward index stops somewhere right about that sell. So I don't have any intentions to sell, because honestly, my clients have become friends in their relationships that I feel like I would have to compromise if I were to join corporate America. That's just a compromise that, morally not really ready to make or willing to make, period.
Okay. Oh, kudos. That's awesome. So, um, eh, that is the challenge, I think, in a lot of industries now, right? Private equity's coming in and buying up places and so forth. And um,
And to everybody you talk to, how many times have you heard private equity making it better, right?
100%.
Yes.
That's a great point. Almost everybody, well, they know up front that it's not going to be as good as it was. Things will change, and they know they're going to be squeezed to try
Hmm.
to, decrease expenses even more and increase the revenue. But yeah, I can't think of one.
Well, for something to throw out there, because I mean, we're looking at it from different angles, and I mean, perspective is everything. If we talk specifically to the bonds, the biggest thing when we see private equities enter in and buy a contractor and still have bonding needs is they pull all of the working capital or cash flow out of it. And, cash is king and working capital is necessary because as a construction company, you're always, getting paid late, whether it be 30 to 120 days. So you really need that cash to operate, and private equity likes to squeeze those companies thinner, and it becomes really difficult for those guys to get through a problem on a project. So it really makes the bonding part of it much more difficult.
I bet. Okay. So is that one of the, what are some of the bigger challenges you've had to overcome in this industry?
To be honest with you, it'd be my competition, and maybe it's just part of the industry itself. But I've had numerous legal battles of competition essentially poking at me, or they're trying to keep the growth down. I'm happy to say it's been 13 years of double-digit growth. So the
Nice.
biggest challenge I've had is from, I guess, my peers trying to hold me back.
Wow.
So
So it's pretty tough, pretty competitive here in the Valley.
yes, I mean, selling insurance isn't easy to probably start with. I think as an insurance producer, they're called producers in Arizona rather than insurance agent. As an insurance producer, I think the failure rate is incredibly high, like 80% or something. It's
Oh,
very
wow.
wild. So
Wow.
not a ton of people make it. So those that are left are pretty savage, if you will. So aligning yourself with the right people from a moral perspective, and not becoming that cutthroat owner is really the goals that I have is, to make sure to always be humble and always be fair. And I think one of the big advantages I have is it's two sides is, I have the job of, protecting the risk and having it magnified by seeing all my clients' problems. But also as a business owner, I get to see what other people do that make them successful or
Right.
is an ultimate detriment to their company. And so I really try to learn from others where I can and help them as much as possible, but you still take away lessons where you get them.
Sure, sure. And yeah, double digit growth for 13 years is very impressive. Is is that your goal for 25? Do you have anything else that you're excited about for the next 6 to 12 months?
Uh, Definitely continue growing. We're actually closing on another office this Friday, so we've got some more growth planned. And with the growth of the valley, obviously we have so many new industries coming into the valley and so many new sectors. And we have different verticals inside of the company that we do ensure other businesses. Construction's our main focus, but there's just so much influx and so much growth that there's a huge need for it. So there's
Okay.
more need than there ever has been. And as a profession, the majority, I mean, the demographic of insurance agents were older people that have hit retirement or are entering it right now. So I think there's a big shortage of professionals. So the need is more than ever has been. So if you want to grow, now's the time, and make hay while the sun shines, I figure.
For sure, for sure. Can we talk a little bit more about that? How the industry cycles and what part of that market we're in right now, generationally, if you will.
Well, sure, I'd be happy to. And a lot of it's going to be from first person experience, in that everybody I've worked with, in say my close to 20 years experience now, um, have been in that age gap where they were, 50 to 60 plus. So as you know,
Right.
I'm getting older, they're getting older, and they're hitting those retirement years. And it's probably a lot of that baby boomer, and it could be, go to college, get a corporate job, you'll work your 9 to 5, you'll be happy, was, preached and praised during that era. And a lot of those people joined corporate America, got into insurance, and now they're hitting the sunsetting point in their career. But it's not a glorious thing. And to my knowledge, there's only one college course or college degree in the nation that actually has insurance as its headlining
Huh.
piece. There's tons of secondary education, and I've done a plenty of it. But as far as college education, there's none that I know besides one college.
Huh. Interesting. So, as those people, is it like other industries where you maybe sell your business or your book of business, your clients or something, or transition into mergers with other people? So do those opportunities come up as people are retiring?
Uh, those opportunities do come up, and typically that is like when you talk about selling an agency, it's selling a book of business, which are those clients. And when you ask about me personally selling, that's where I have a tough time with it because those clients are friends, and to
Sure.
take relationships and sell those, I
Well, it's
mean,
one thing to sell it to private equity. It's another thing to be retiring after doing it for a long time.
exactly. Yeah. So I mean, at some point, I think you have to have a good plan, for carrying on the legacy.
Yes.
But for myself, who haven't quite crested 40, it doesn't seem, something like that's necessary. We're still in kind of kicking butts and taking names mode.
Sure, but have you entertained those acquisitions of other people's book of business and taking on other people's clients to try to continue to serve them?
I've seen it. I have not. I've seen it happen and through peers, and I very rarely see it done
Really?
successfully, because it really is a relationship-based business, and I don't think you can monetize a relationship to the
No, but
point where you can sell
you
it to
can maybe
somebody.
keep serving them by finding the right person to transition them over to, right? That they're
Mhm.
vetting you on their client's behalf in a sense, so they don't just have to
Yes.
go find their own type of thing, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there is value in that for sure. But the retention ratio, I would tell you, for me, is if I were to be on the purchasing end, would not be as good as the multiple that, what I've heard that some of these books of businesses would sell
Oh,
for.
wow. Okay. Okay.
So, and
Interesting.
there's a mass amount of change. I'd say it sure seems like in these last few years, and I think there's probably gonna be a lot more change for the next few more.
Right, right. So in my industry right now, I focus on apartment communities, and our insurance rates, depending upon they are, they've gone up pretty high all over the place. But this is a standard property insurance, right? Commercial property insurance. Do you provide that as well as your business coverage?
Yes. Mhm. Yes,
Okay,
we do lots of property insurance, and here in Arizona, where we don't get hail or
right.
knock on wood, the
Or
wildfires.
hurricanes or
Yeah, it's very profitable. So it's rarely talked about because I mean, in my entire career, I've only had one fire loss from a total fire loss from a client. Like it's so rare and unheard of. It's
right.
very much a rarity, which is good. I mean, that's the big benefit
Yep.
of Arizona is we're natural disaster free.
Right. But have you seen insurance rates go up in different classes of the different products you provide?
Without a doubt. I mean, insurance is a for-profit business, and the insurance carriers of the inflation wave has, gone all the way to them because as the claims occur, the labor costs have increased, the materials have increased, the cost to redo what once was is not that anymore. So I feel like it's really the end wave of inflation finally hitting the insurance companies, and
Right.
they're finally reacting with increasing
Yeah.
the rates.
So it's lagging by a couple of years.
I would say so. I don't think they were proactive at all when it comes to inflation. I think it was very much a reactive. And, um, we've got several carrier partners, a few dozen, and I'm proud to work with them. But I will say that until it really hit the financials, the losses, they didn't prematurely take rate.
Right.
But there were some definite losses seen. And one of the other wild things that from being on the inside of the insurance industry is reinsurance is a big thing where a lot of these insurance companies will only insure up to, say, the first 100 or $500,000 of your property, and then they buy reinsurance for the remaining. And where a lot of that pressure is coming from is those reinsurance people. They're seeing they're just underwriting it based on a financial performance basis, and they're not performing well. They're losing money mainly due to inflation. And so they're saying either our costs are going up or our capacity is going to go away. So it's a supply and demand and increased costs. So we're feeling it. So without a doubt, yeah, it's here.
Okay. Thanks for that. So, reflection question. What do you wish you would have known sooner about, it seems like you've been on a pretty good tack. You starting off early, you got some construction background and you had a good mentor and so forth, but was there anything particularly you wish you would have known sooner about building wealth and success earlier in your career?
Yes, I'm glad you asked me that question because it's something that I've learned in the past few years. But I think what it is really surrounding yourself with people that are better than you are at the tasks you're not great at. Okay. Like I'm thankful enough to get a fantastic controller who's been with me a little over a year and a half now. That was really game changing. Oh, nice. And I'm lucky enough to have an executive assistant to help really organize and keep me prepared and ready and on top of a schedule so I can be more effective and more efficient. So I'd say, being able to employ and surround yourself with those people that can do a better job at the things that maybe your personal skill set isn't as strong with is something that I wish I would have known 10 years ago, without a doubt. Okay.
Yeah. For scaling, it's very important to be able to delegate properly and hire for that. And that's something I still struggle with, but it's good, very good answer. Good, incredibly important. John, if people want to connect with you and learn more, what should they do? How can they find you?
So the easiest way is a Google search, reliableriskmanagement.com. We've got a website and it's got a contact us link. Or also if you Google us, there's a phone number and address, but we're more than happy to chat if there's anybody out there that has questions or needs in the bonding world, the insurance world, whether it be personal or commercial lines.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Thanks again, John Norbut, for joining me today. We appreciate you sharing your story and your insights into success and insurance here in Phoenix.
All right. Thanks, Tim.
Inspired by our guests? Visit PhoenixProsperityPodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.